in my kitchen today. The idea of this is that I will have a nice freshly baked treat to eat while I'm writing after it is done. When I was trying to write like Beverly Cleary, I tried to write in between the steps of making bread, and that did not work because I could not focus on anything but the bread. So, today I'm going to be making scones. Very fancy. These are my favorite scones. They call for dried cranberries. I do not have dried cranberries, so I'm going to be using raisins. It will be fine. Also, when I was baking that bread like Beverly Cleary, my hair was down and I ended up getting a hair in the dough. And it was very gross and I'm sorry about that. So, today, my hair is pulled back. There will be no hair in these scones. So, I'm gonna make scones, gonna bake them, gonna settle in with some coffee or some tea, and then we're going to get to writing. I hope this works better. Alright, so we are starting with 2 cups of flour. And like always, I will post the recipe below. It is not my recipe. It's just my favorite recipe. I found it online. It is delicious with dried cranberries if you have them, but you know, I don't have them. 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then measurements, 1 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. This is a 1/2 teaspoon, so I'm going to use 2 of these. And 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And then we mix. I do find, as someone who has anxiety, I read an article once that working with your hands can really help alleviate your symptoms. And I'm, in therapy, I take medication, I do all kinds of things for my symptoms, but I have found that working with my hands, like baking and gardening, actually really does help with my symptoms. So, I do suggest giving it a try if you're struggling. Alright, now we've got a stick of butter, and I'm supposed to do that cutting thing in there with this pastry dough. I don't have a pastry cutter, and the fork and knife thing never works for me, so I'm going to cut it into cubes, and then I'm just going to use my hands, because you know what? It's my kitchen, and nobody can stop me. Alright, these are clean hands, but if that bothers you, look away! So what I do is I just pinch them. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but pinching works for me. So it's what I do. So if you've been following me along, hit or miss now for a few vlogs, you might think, oh, after this she's going to work on her magic mystery. Aha, well that's not the case. I have put the magic mystery to the wayside for just like a few days while I go back. I have returned to my previous manuscript. It's a contemporary mystery, and I had finished it and submitted it all everywhere that you could possibly submit a novel, and it was rejected everywhere, but I got this idea to make it better, and it's been rejected everywhere. It probably has no chance of survival, but I can't let it rest unfinished, so I have returned to the novel. I'm gonna finish this idea, and then when I feel like the manuscript is, resting at peace in the cemetery of novels in my brain, then I will be able to move back to my magic mystery. I am anticipating this little revision to only take me a few days, and then we will be back to our regular scheduled programming of magic mystery. So if you're here for the fantasy, please come back. I promise I will return to the fantasy soon. I don't know, I'm just not good at multitasking. That's why I couldn't bake the bread and write at the same time. So I can't work on 2 stories at once. Alright, this is pretty sandy. They say to make it be a sandy texture. Looking pretty sandy to me. Alright. Alright, this is the fun part. This is what makes these, like, the best scones you'll ever have. The recipe calls for buttermilk. I never have buttermilk, so I usually make my own buttermilk-esque type of concoction by using regular milk. Am I gonna have enough? Oh, yeah. And then I usually add orange juice. And then there's just, the scone has like this little effervescent citrus note at the end, and it is fabuloso. I don't actually have an orange right now, so I'm gonna use grapefruit juice, and it's gonna be delicious. I've never done this part before, but I like grapefruit juice, so I imagine it's gonna be just as good as orange juice. I assume you could use buttermilk, like the recipe says to. But why would you do that when you're missing out on the excellent citrus notes that making your own buttermilk adds? So now we're gonna let this curdle. I don't know if there's a more appetizing word for that. And now we are adding a half cup of white chocolate chips. Oh dear. You know, I'm just gonna add this whole bag. There we go. Now you're supposed to add a half a cup of dried cranberries. I do not have dried cranberries, so I'm gonna add a half cup of raisins. In the past, I have thought about soaking the raisins / dried cranberries in orange juice to see if that makes it even more citrusy, but I didn't do that this time, so we're not gonna do it. That's just something you could try on your own. Yay. Okay. These were in the fridge, so they are a little bit weird. It'll be fine. I mean, I like oatmeal raisin cookies, so I feel like these should still be good in here. Now, this is the weirdest part of the recipe. For some reason, I just do what it says, but for some reason it wants you to add the vanilla now when it looks like this mixture instead of like with the liquid. So we just do what it says. All right, a teaspoon of vanilla. This is a half a teaspoon. Okay, it'll be a little bit vanilla-y, but you know, that never hurt anybody. Now for the good stuff. Dear, I think this is gonna be another hand dough mixing thing. I don't know if it bothers people when I mix with my hands. But, you know, sometimes dough... People were making bread since before they had utensils. So you're supposed to mix it with your hands. A little tiny bit. Alright, add vanilla, everything. Knead lightly, and then flatten the dough into a circle. What is knead lightly mean? If I'm being totally honest, I usually skip the kneading, but the scones usually turn out a little bit like loose and maybe crumbly. I don't know if that is what kneading solves, but you know, for the sake of camera, I'll knead. All right, I left some flour out here for my lightly floured surface. And we're just gonna knead a little bit, or maybe not. Maybe we'll just flatten it into a circle. We're supposed to make 8 scones. I usually make like 11 because, you know, I like scones. But again, I'm making them fancy for you guys, so we're gonna make 8. It said to flatten it into 7 inches. I don't know who can just gauge what 7 inches looks like. I mean, does that seem like a good thickness for a scone? Is it too thick? Should I flatten it even more? It's gotta be good. Good enough. Alright, wow, I'm just gonna cut this straight on the counter. Oh my, that's probably not what you're supposed to do. Oops, that one is a little bit big, but you know, it's fine. Now we transfer to a baking sheet. You're supposed to brush the tops with more of this mixture. I don't think I have a pastry brush. I do. And now we bake. My oven is actually broken, so I'm going to be making these in the toaster oven, but it will be fine. You know, for like all of COVID, the oven was broken, and we baked everything in the toaster oven. And it worked out, so that's what I'm doing. Oven's broken again, so we have the backup toaster oven. The scone is definitely better with dried cranberries. The raisins are a little too raisiny. The grapefruit juice worked well though. Interestingly, it doesn't leave near as much flavor as the orange juice does. So if you're making this, I say use orange juice and dried cranberries. Mine are good, but yours will be better. Alright, so here is the trouble I am having. I lost all confidence in my writing ability. This story is one... I've written 6 novels, and this novel is like the best, fullest, like, realist version of what I want to write. And so I'm having a hard time getting back into it. I have determined that there is one new scene that I need to add, and then 2 important scenes that I need to change. And then that's pretty much it, and I'll be done again, and yet for some reason... everything I write just feels so overly labored, just like forced, and I know it's because I lost my confidence in my writing because this story was rejected everywhere, but I also know I'll feel so much better once this story is just completely done, so I don't know what to tell you. I wish I had better news. I'm just struggling.